Q Ward is going to talk to us about how Prop 50 is fighting fire with fire. Q.
So fire with fire is an interesting way to say it. It's like the fire break, not the fire.
Okay.
So let's talk about it. Something that gets people heated apparently on both sides of the aisle is California's Proposition 50. Now, depends on who you ask, right? It's either a bold act of democratic self-defense or the first sign that the good guys are now playing dirty. The truth is a little more complicated, a bit more nuanced. So let's talk about it. Bigger picture. Across the country, and this is not opinion, this is objective, verifiable fact. We've watched a political movement, the MAGA movement, dismantle political norms as if they were never meant to last in the first place. They've turned the law and order party into laws for you, free chaos for me. They've gerrymandered districts so hard you can practically see their fingerprints moving the map. They've purged election officials, replacing them with loyalists, and brag about it. You know, hashtag never surrender power. This is not what democracy is supposed to look or feel like. It looks or feels more like a capture. And while they've been at it, they've managed to convince millions of Americans, almost me, that our institutions can no longer be trusted. They've sold chaos so effectively, stoked racism so aggressively, and weaponized religion in a way that they've turned divide and conquer into their entire political strategy. So when California says, hey, we see what's going on, and we're not sitting this one out, Prop 50 was born out of that exact moment. What Prop 50 actually did, because a lot of people just see the headline, right? Let's be clear about what Prop 50 actually does. Prop 50 temporarily, that is a very important piece, suspends the independent commission-drawn congressional map, really just until the next census, so the remainder of this decade, and allows the state legislator to create a new one. That's the whole thing, folks. It didn't dissolve the commission. It didn't rewrite the Constitution. It did not crown a king. The biggest differentiator and the most important thing is that they asked for permission to do it. The people of California in a democratic election voted on it. You know, the same democratic process that created the independent commission in the first place allowed this exception. So this wasn't Texas, where legislators just redrew the map, told us that they believed in self-governance in the middle of a decade to lock in power without any input from voters. California used the tools of democracy to defend democracy. So you can say it where it sounds rebellious and nefarious, or you can just point out that it's a piece of much needed resilience. Now, let's be fair, Rams. People have legitimate concerns. Okay. If you're someone who values processes and independence above all else, Prop 50 feels risky. You might say, we built this independent redistricting commission to take politics out of our map drawing. And now we're letting politicians back in. That's hypocrisy, right? I say it's a fair question, but here's the difference. The commission is not gone. It's just paused. The change is not permanent. It is temporary. And it was not done in the dark without permission or cooperation or participation from voters. It was actually decided by them. This wasn't some backroom power grab like we've been seeing. This was a front page, out loud conversation about fairness, representation, and we're playing a little defense. Now, some people might be worried that this sets a rather dangerous precedent. And being cautious is right. Questioning things, having built in brakes where we stop and look both ways before we cross the street, I respect it. Every time democracy tweaks its own rules, it should feel a little uncomfortable. It should cause a little bit of pause. Being uneasy is better than being unarmed, because what's happening across the country isn't normal politics. It's strategic disenfranchisement. And California's voters chose to fight back at the ballots, not with bulldozers. Think of democracy like a forest. When one part catches fire, misinformation, corruption, voter suppression, you can't just hope it burns itself out. You build what we call a fire break. You clear a path, you make a temporary wound in the landscape, and it stops the blaze from spreading. Prop 50 was not fire with fire, it was a fire break. It wasn't about revenge, it was about containment. Because you can't fight arson with fire codes alone. The arsonist doesn't care about the fire codes. Now MAGA wants to scream, see, the left is doing the same thing. Come on, son. What they've done for years is remove people from the process, suppress voters, intimidate elections, workers, and replace fair play with fear. What California did was involve the people directly and ask them, do you consent to us making this adjustment? That's democracy exercising its power, not erasing it. One side lied to the public to gain power. The other side asked the public's permission to protect their representation. These are not equivalent actions. If you rig a game and your opponent appeals to the referees, that's not cheating. We used to call that justice.